Can you hear me now? Is this good? I'm gonna wait till I see no sound still, or can you hear me now? Nothing still? Yes? Yay? Okay. I'm so sorry about that, guys. I was ready and then I guess my mic went off. So back to what I want to share with you all. So I just wanted to say it's an honor to be here with you all. Thank you for being here in the room with me. I'm excited to share what I've learned over the years about customer relations. So, who is your customer and how to keep them, earning their trust, dollar, and time. But before I get into all of that, I want to give out a huge shout out to Margaret Pinard and SC Houston and Devin. You guys are amazing. It must have taken so much work to just put this all together. So thank you. Oh, hey. A friend of mine was in here saying hi. So just thank you guys so much for all this work that you've put into it. Thank you for allowing me to have this space to share with everyone who's here just what I've learned. So why don't we get to it? We are going to be talking about who is your customer and how to keep them. Now, just a small disclaimer that I have about what I'm presenting today. This is going to be focusing on business to customer and business to business. I'm not going to be going too much into algorithms and more the computer sphere, internet sphere, but I know there have been already some amazing presentations that have touched on that. And I'm sure that if you went into those, you've learned a lot. But this is talking about the personal touch, the human connection, readers, and the new customer that you're going to be learning about today. And also, this is more of a common sense training, but just because it's common sense doesn't always mean it's common practice. So I hope you learned some new things today, or perhaps you've known them but didn't realize how important they are in your business as an author. Now, why is it that sometimes we don't follow our common sense? Because our fears can sabotage what we know to be true. Isn't that correct? So let's get into many times we as authors fall into the trap of thinking that our only customer is the reader. Because, yes, eventually our books fall into reader hands, right? It's not read by the internet or AI or whatever. It's that person that we want to reach with our stories. However, it's simply not true. It is not our only customer because there's another customer that we tend to overlook, and we tend to sometimes see them as the bothersome middleman. And that customer that we're going to be looking into is the bookstore. Now, if you've never thought about doing in-person events, this is also hopefully going to open your mind to that sphere of how amazing in-person events can be with your readers, but also with bookstores. I find sometimes we as authors think of bookstores as this holy grail of getting into, and it's a little scary to get into, but really it's not. We're going to, you know, dust away some of those cobwebs and shine a path through, and you're going to see that it's very, very doable. So it's important to note the difference, though, between the two, because there's a huge difference between readers and bookstores. And that difference is going to make all the difference when approaching these two very different customers. I'm going to share actually a little story about this. So I've been married to my husband for 14 years. And for 14 years, a few times have happened that he has mistaken someone else for me, my mom. We used to, uh, last year and a half, it hasn't been the case, but we used to have the same hair color. We have the same build. We have the same height. And there have been a couple of times when he has come up behind her and perhaps embraced her in a certain way that was just a little more affectionate than he would have usually given her because he thought it was me. And if you look at both of us from behind, we used to look identical. And this is what I find we as authors do with readers and bookstores. We approach them the same way because we think that that's the way it's got to be done. But yeah, oops. I'm going to put that comment up. It's a big oops. Thankfully, there was no weird, awkward affection going on. But this past year and a half, my mom has let her hair go white, gray, however you want to call it. And now there's a very fine distinction between myself and my mom. That is not happening anymore, right? And so hopefully after this presentation that I'm giving you, you're going to see that you're going to see the distinctions between the two and you're going to approach them differently. So that's the funny story for you guys. All right. And also, the foundation of this presentation of approaching readers, of approaching bookstores, is that we're focusing on people. So it doesn't matter whether they are readers or they're bookstore staff, we're going to build bridges. I came across this phrase in my early teens. My Sunday school teacher just mentioned building bridges. What is building bridges all about? It's not necessarily about getting your word in first or making people think a certain way. It's about hearing them out. What do they need from me? What do we have in common? And how can we connect together? So, probably one of the biggest takeaways, if you can take away anything, is that you want to have that mindset of building bridges either with your readers or your bookstore staff. Oh, I'm so glad that you love it. I love it too. It's basically a founding principle of my entire life. I build a lot of my life on building bridges. So, in order to have successful relationships with either or reader or bookstore staff or bookstores, we need to think long term. Now, it's easier for us as authors to think long term with readers because if you look at the connection points that readers can have with us overall, there's more connection points on our writer journey. But with bookstores, it's slightly different. We bookstores just seem to be this category of this is where you pull in new customers. Now you can do this with readers too, where you pull them in new via social media. They follow you, they see your stuff. But usually when we think of our readers, we think of they've read our stuff, they've given it a chance, we've already won them over, we are keeping their loyalty. And obviously that comes about when we have newsletters. And then when we have newsletters that we send out, that is the space where we can give them those exclusive tidbits that they really enjoy. So it's easier to think of readers as long term, but we really, if you want to reach a market, because think of it, there's a lot of readers out there who still go to bookstores. I mean, I'm a huge bookstore lover. Do you like to visit bookstores? I do. So there's that market that may never hear of your book because it's not in a bookstore, and that's where they go to buy their books. That's just the fact of life. So in order to reach those readers who go to bookstores, then you need to reach the bookstores. And we're going to go into all of that. How do you earn their trust, their time, and their dollar? Okay, yes, I'm seeing a lot of people. They love the bookstore. Okay, and I do see we have some questions here. How do you get your books into physical bookstores? I'm going to touch a little bit here. I'm going to show that. I'm going to touch a little bit on how we do that here. I do have a full training on how to approach a bookstore. That's on my YouTube channel, Pen to Paper, which you're here now. So if you sub, you can find that video where I really go into detail on how to approach them and the type of email you write and how you go about that. But we are going to touch on a little bit here. And if you want the specifics, you can go for that training there. And I see similar question here. I was going to ask that too. How do we even get into a bookstore, much less do an event there when indie publishing? Okay, yes, we're going to definitely talk about events. I'm really excited for this because I've done many, actually all in the space of this past year. Since February, I've been booked nonstop on a book tour, first in my local area and then into Ottawa. which I consider local. I live in the middle of nowhere. So basically, anything within an hour radius is local to me. That's just my normal. So let's keep going and we will definitely get into that. So we are going to first jump into, oh, here, I'm going to put this down. Yes, that's fine. You can go ahead and ask questions in the right, you can ask questions and if I can get to it right away, I'll definitely ask it. So, answer it. Okay, we're going to get into trust and we're going to earn their time and we're going to earn their dollar. So, how do we earn trust? If we can get trust down, trust me, everything else is just going to kind of fall into place very quickly and easily. But trust, as we could probably all say, is the hardest thing to give someone, much less some random author who wants, us to read their book. And what if we don't like their book? And we could come up with a whole bunch of excuses for not trusting people. But let's go into trust. Now, before I'm just going to, okay. Um, we want to be, I think the main basis of trust is honesty, right? If you're honest, I can trust you. So we're going to look into these two questions in a minute. And I divided it up into reader and bookstore. So hopefully this is helpful to you. I'm going to be going back and forth between reader and bookstore. Feel free to write down notes on your papers, but I'm going to be going showcase A and B and then go back to A and B. So hopefully that's, very distinct for you guys. All right. So we go into honesty. Now I have kids. I don't know if any of you have kids or maybe you've seen kids do this, but have you ever seen kids where they just blurt something out and it's really the honest truth and they're so unashamed to say it, but it makes the situation look worse or the adults involved look worse, right? My kids have done this or something has happened at home and one of my parents tends to get more worried sometimes when they really don't need to be, everything's fine and they just blurt out the story. I'm like, oh, I just didn't want them to quite say it. This cannot be happening. This cannot be happening when you're talking to your reader or to your bookstore. You need to be completely transparent with them about who you are and what your books are about. So the first question we're going to ask is, who are the readers eager to read your story? First of all, let's get this out of the way. You are not desperate and you are not going to pander to every genre and every type of reader. I know this is kind of 101, but it's easy to get sucked into the comparison game of, oh, that person seems to be doing so much more well than I because they seem to have a broader audience because maybe they touch different genres. You need to stick with what you've written and how you are showing that to be. So figure out, who is my specific audience. If it's not sci-fi, don't even try to get into that sphere. A few times now, I write Canadian historical fiction. And two of my books are historical romance, and one of them is a historical murder mystery. So I've come across at events, I've had people come to me and they say, I ask them, first of all, what do you like to read? And they'll say, I really like true crime. And then I'll be like, okay, well, I don't have true crime. I write historical fiction. This one's a murder mystery. It might be up your alley. So go ahead and take a look. I'm not expecting them to buy it because it's not quite true crime, but if they're open enough to slightly different suggestions within that sphere, then they might buy it, right? So it's just showing that don't sell your book as something that's really not. Now, I have someone here saying, I just caught my eye. Let's see here. A lot of bookstores around here have closed. We used to have Hastings that closed, Barnes and Nobles. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess everywhere is different. I do have quite a bit of bookstores around here. So, okay. And then we have another one. Using social media, I've done well with readers, even seen as an authority now, but that takes time. Yeah. So, yes, we're going to go into now bookstores. How do you approach bookstores? First of all, you need to figure out, do you and your book have selling points? Because bookstores is all about selling books, right? If they're not selling the books, then what's the point of having the books in store? So you definitely want to keep in mind some things you can think of. Are you a local author to that bookstore? Now, again, local for me is within a 1 hour radius. I don't know if that works for you. Canada's really big and it's far to get places. And so just approach your local bookstore, because probably if you're local, they're going to want your book there. Because I mean, where I am in Canada, and I'm sure it's around in other places too, the States and the UK, people want to support local businesses, local authors, local artists. So take that leap and go to your local bookstore and say, listen, I'm a local author. I would love to have my books in your bookstore. So, what other selling points can you have? Well, maybe you are not local to that bookstore, but for example, my first book is based in Halifax during the Halifax explosion of 1917. So a few libraries in Halifax have my books, or some of the bookstores there have my books. So can you use that as a selling point to a bookstore in a certain location? Now, also another thing you can think of is, or one thing you should think of is, are you an indie or traditionally published book? Now, if you're traditionally published, obviously that's probably going to be a lot easier to get in. If you are indie and you want to get into a bookstore, this is the case for Canada. The biggest chain that we have here is Indigo. That includes Coles and Chapters. I don't know if it's the same for Barnes and Noble and UK stores. I'm assuming it is probably very similar. But if you are indie, you're going to want to have your book on Ingram Spark, which is the standard industry platform for expanded distribution, because Amazon, it has expanded distribution, but bookstores just don't deal with Amazon. So they deal with Ingram Spark. And the great thing about having your book on Ingram Spark is that you get the money right away when they put in the purchase order. It's easier paperwork for them. They get the books and they have it in their stores. And that's how it goes. And then, is it a first book, or have you many books behind you? Do you have a presence? Do you have a brand? Is this something that they think would sell well? So think about what you can offer bookstores about you and your books. It's just something you need to keep in mind. Now, the second question we're going to get into that for readers and bookstores is, are you selling what you're promising? Again, this goes with honesty. Don't try to missell yourself, even if it's like a tiny little white lie of a missell. And if you have been misselling yourself, even just a little bit, then one thing that is very admirable is humility. Go ahead and be humble. Express that you have been slightly misselling yourself and correct it. That's the way to go, because eventually you're going to be found out. You know, readers have a really great way of sniffing out someone that is not quite selling the book the way it is. I've had many readers come up to me in person events and say, yeah, I picked up this book and it looked like this. It sounded like this on the back. It even looked like this on the cover, but it's not what it was at all. Do you really want to be that author that a reader says that about? And when they've said that about an author, it's a hard no. No, thank you. I don't want to read their stuff anymore, because they have been dishonest dishonest with the reader. So that's not what you want for yourself. Now, for a bookstore. Oh, yes, I have a question here. Is it still true that the ISBN you get free from Amazon somehow shows up in the catalogs bookstores use to show the book is indie self-pub so they'll avoid it? That's a really good question. So you know what? I'm going to be humble. I'm going to actually say I don't know. I don't know this answer. It could very well be. I could see how that could be an issue. See, in Canada, we can actually get free ISBNs from the Library and Archives of Canada. So that's where I've gotten all my ISBNs from. That's it. Because with Amazon, you don't get an ISBN. It's the, what is it? The ASIN. That's what it is. So That might be the case. I can definitely look into it, Rita, and get back to you on that. I would love to help with that research. Okay, would a bookstore talk with a publisher, and where could I get all my authors into the store? Yes, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't speak with a publisher as long as you show that you're business minded, you want to work with them, you want to have that long term relationship with them. Um, and yeah, definitely just find the now for bookstores with chain bookstores in Canada, you don't just email them because, right, like let's say for Indigo, there's an Indigo in this spot and an Indigo in this spot. You have to call them and then you find out who's in charge of either doing an author signing or having books on consignment. So you could call up your bookstore and just see who is in charge of acquiring books. I'm not sure if you're thinking of a chain or a small bookstore, it just depends. And then definitely get their email and start a dialogue with them. Yeah, exactly. You just tell everyone what the ISBN is and you get it for free. Okay, so back to the bookstore. What date can you commit to? Now, I'm going to go on slightly two different tangents with this. If you are wanting to bring your books in for consignment, for anyone who doesn't know what consignment is, it is when you bring your own copies of your books to the bookstore and they take, now I believe here it's 60%, sorry, not 60%, that would be robbery. They take 40% and then you get 60% of the sales. Um, when you figure out that they're willing to accept your books on consignment and you have a date that you agree on to bring your books to them, commit to the date. Don't let your personal life and other things bombard that and then take away that time. And if you really can't make the time that you said you would, then give them 24 hours in advance notice so that way they can rearrange their schedule as needed to. This is a very common sense thing to do, but unfortunately, sometimes we just get so bogged down by my life this and this is going on that we just don't realize what an inconvenience are not being able to commit to a time can be to the other person. It's kind of stealing their time. So let's be very trustworthy with our time because that is something that is precious to everyone. Okay, so is consignment a good first step, risk free for them? Yes, consignment is a good first step. If you don't have your books on Ingram Spark, then approach them about consignment. And risk free for them, that's right. They basically, you would bring your books into a bookstore and then you would agree to leave 5 copies. If you have more than one book, 5 copies of each, and you have it for a certain date. That would be in your contract. So let's say from May to August, the end of August. And whatever you don't sell, you just take back with you. So that is good for them. And as I said, they take a percentage and you get the rest of it. However, when I was talking to some of my Indigo bookstores, they were definitely saying that they would prefer Ingram Spark just because it was easier with the paperwork on their end. See, when you do consignment, they have to draw up a contract and they just have extra paperwork. So it could be depending on your location and what store prefers what, but it would definitely be handy to have both if you can. But if you don't have Ingram Spark, start with consignment. It's a good place to start with for sure. And now, the last questions that we have here for building trust is, are you capable in sharing your story? Okay. I'm going to say it like this because I don't know if you've ever been or if you've ever, I guess, oh, here. We just have, I guess, just ask how they would be able to do it and what is best for them. Exactly. I don't know if you can tell, but this whole presentation, the underlying theme, building bridges and what can you do for them? Because once you become an author, it becomes very quickly apparent that it's not about you and your books. It's about the reader and their experience. Or for bookstores, now you guys are learning bookstores is a customer. Before you even get to the reader, you have to go through the bookstore, right? So it's oh, oh great. Someone says they found 4 indie bookstores within an hour and a half drive. There you go. Okay. I'm loving your discussion, your dialogue in the chat, guys, and hopefully we'll be able to come back to more of that. Okay. So are you capable in sharing a story? I don't know if you've ever met someone who just kind of takes 5, 10 minutes to talk about what they want to talk about and they never get to the thick of what they're trying to say. As an author, we can do that too. We get so lost in the world that we've written and we're just so excited to share like every single aspect of our book, and we just take forever to say what our book's really about. And a lot of the times the reader, what I've noticed in the past few book signings I've done is people just have limited time, mostly. You'll have some readers that just want to stay forever in a bookstore, and that's great. But a lot of them are just in there. They want it quick, right? People's attention spans are very small. So you need to be able to share your story in 1 to 2 sentences, 30 seconds. Not 2 minutes, not 5 minutes, not giving all the little subplot deals. You want to give them a nice taste of what your book is and leave it there, and then they can read the synopsis and look in the cover. But some of them don't even want to look at that. They just want you to tell them what your story is about. So what it's called a log line. If you don't have a log line for your book, take the time to write one out, and then you can memorize it, practice saying it so it doesn't sound rehearsed. But basically it's saying what your book is about, the main thrust of the plot and characters in 30 seconds. Okay, maybe a little less than under a minute. But that shows that you really know what your story is about. You're a capable author. You're not going to waste their time because time is precious. Okay. So, and when you are, and as I said, delivering what you promise. Now let's go to the bookstore. A few of you have touched on you want to do an event there, right? So even just a book signing, can you present a clear plan? Can you be mindful of dates and time and planning? Um, so if you want to do an author event, what time, from what time are you going to be there? And oh, hold on. I'm just going to go to this question because I see one. I quote the back cover blurb. It's quick and highlights. Do you think that is a good effort? Sure. I guess does it sound rehearsed? Does it sound like you've memorized it? If it does, then you might want to have a slightly more condensed version that sounds very natural as you say it. You don't want to say a log line that is kind of obvious it was written. So if you can deliver it naturally, then yes, go ahead and do that. But if you can't and it's just a little too wordy, then succinctly bring it down. And then, if they want to look at the back, then they can read the back more. Does Barnes and Nobles have any extended physical distribution deals? Again, I'm in Canada, so Indigo, the way that Indigo works is they do have an extended physical distribution deal with Ingram Spark. I'm assuming Barnes and Noble would be very similar. So definitely call up a Barnes and Noble and ask to speak to the manager and ask them if they can order from Ingram Spark, not from Amazon. They're not going to do it. Okay. I have here, I do the who, when, now log line. Yes, Dorothy is a young woman on a Kansas farm who dreams of escaping. When a tornado flies to her fantastic land of Oz, she has to find her way home. That's great. See, that's snappy. It's quick. That is so good. All right. And yeah, just presenting a clear plan to a bookstore. Remember, a bookstore views you not as, they view you as a business. When you think of bookstores, you have to think, I'm a business. How do I show myself as a business? Can I be clear and concise and give a clear plan? And that's what you want to think of with the bookstore. Now we're going to go into how to earn time. Now that you've laid down trust, time will come more easily and naturally. So how can you make your readers feel important? Definitely take some time to think about that. How do you feel important when someone speaks to you or gives you time, right? Do you give them eye contact? Do you ask questions and not necessarily about what they can do for you or do they like your book? Like ask them questions. Listen, you're a lover of books, right? I love books. They love books. Ask questions about books. What do they like to read? And if they read a genre that is totally different from yours, go the extra mile. Okay, who's your favorite, I don't know, fantasy author, sci-fi author? Get recommendations from them. Give them recommendations if you can. It's all about building connections because even though they don't read your genre, who knows who they're going to tell, like in their life, their family, their friends, who knows who they will tell about you. And just the impression you've given them by giving them your time of day and by treating them with respect and honor, that's going to sink in and they're going to highly recommend you just for that, just for the way you treat them. So, how do they feel in your presence? What do you want them to feel in your presence? Definitely think about that. And if you realize, oh, I don't quite look people in the eyes, I kind of brush them off because I see that someone else is coming to my table or I see them somewhere else and I'm like, okay, next reader, then just take the time to work on it in the mirror with friends and family. You know, we have to educate ourselves. If we don't know how to do something, or if we do something very poorly, then make time out of your schedule to work on it. We have a question here. Okay, how many physical copies of your book should you bring to your book signing if you're on consignment at a place you are unknown at? So, all the bookstores that I brought my books to for consignment, they've always asked for 5 copies. And now that might be smaller depending on how long the contract is. I have a contract with one from the end of May to end of August, and they asked for 5. If you have a book signing, then bring an extra 10, depending on how well you do with the time with readers, how you interact with people, how you give them the space to feel special and heard and validated. If you do that well, and it's a genre that's pretty, that has a big market like fantasy or romance, or even I write historical fiction, and then there's subgenres between that. I usually sell between 10 to 20 at a book signing. So that's what I recommend, 10 to 20. Um, and if yeah, just depending on the foot traffic too. And usually when I've done book signings, I do them for 2, 3 hours max. Okay. So and once you have, let's say your readers have bought a book from you, do you give them the space to have exclusive stuff? So I mentioned newsletters. You can all do social media contests as well. And you need a place to follow up. So, really, the best place to do this would be to have a newsletter because once you have a newsletter and you give them that exclusive place to get those exclusive tidbits from you, also, make it very clear that they can reply to your emails anytime. Do they have questions about your books? Just questions in general about your writing? Are they a fledgling writer and want to learn from you? Make sure that they know that you are accessible and that you can share that with them. Now, let's look at questions with the bookstore. How can you afford them more time? How can you be very professional with them? You need to be aware. So basically, make sure you reply when you are okay. When you call, you email them about a book signing or consignment, and they send you a reply. Make sure that you reply within a 1 to 2 day window, so they don't forget about you because they're very busy. They're a business, there's stuff happening there, right? I've had it that bookstores, once I've replied in 1 to 2 days, that they didn't reply back for like a month. And it was something that we needed to figure out like a date, and then they replied a month too late. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't work anymore. The date that I was thinking of. And then they said yes, but now it's not available. Right. So if they don't reply back to you within a week, just send them a quick little message saying, hey, just waiting to hear your reply on this. What do you think? Right. Okay. And also, when you get to the spot where you're going to do a book signing, be prepared with your questions. You don't want to be that type of author that sets up and then every half an hour has a question for them. Okay. Just have it all prepared at the beginning of time. They can give that time to you. And then they're busy. They have to deal with customers in the bookstore and help readers find books. So just be prepared with your questions. And also, in time, arrive early to set up when you have an event. Don't be like, don't get there if you've said, okay, I'm going to be there at 1, don't get there at 1. Get there at least 2:40, 12:45, even 12:30, right? You just never know what can happen. Actually, and then you have to gauge an extra time, how long it's going to drive, how much traffic is there. Just make sure you buffer your time properly. Okay, we have a question here. How far in advance should you, I'm guessing, begin bed booking things? Bed booking things with bookstores. Do they want things several months in advance or a few weeks? Yeah, definitely not a few weeks. And I'm saying that specifically if you do go the Ingram Spark way where they order your books, like purchase order, they need, okay, let's see. I had a book signing in June and he wanted to order it like end of April, beginning of May. So they need that month, that time to send in the purchase order, receive the books. And then that never happened because I had said my books were available on Ingram Spark, but something happened where their distributor, there was a connection problem. They couldn't order my books, and then it went on consignment, which was fine. And now, if they want to order my books, they can. But he needed a month to do that. And then you have to, before that happens, you have to connect and talk to them, right? So definitely, I would I'm already starting to book things for October, and this is almost July. So I would start at least 2 months in advance. If you have, let's say, a book tour you want to do, then book 2 months in advance as you go along in the book tour. Yes, I am loving your questions. Thank you so much. Okay. What supplies should you bring? Tablecloths? Do you need a banner? Obviously, pens and markers, etc. Yes. So bookstores most of the time will have a table and chair for you unless they say they don't have it for you, but you should always ask just in case. So you might need a table and chair, but most of the time they do. Tablecloth, the chain stores will have a tablecloth that usually has their logo in the front, so you won't need to bring a tablecloth. But for indie bookstores, then you'll want to bring a tablecloth, and then you can make one. You can get one done with your own logo or your name or whatever. Do you need a banner? No, you don't need a banner. I have a frame that has a poster that says, now when I do my special event of a scavenger hunt, which I can explain in a little bit, it's a scavenger hunt reading, um, inquire for more details inside, but it's big, it's bright, everyone can see it. So that's what I do bring if I have the special event. And yes, so pens, markers, make sure you have enough books, whatever else, stickers. Now, one thing that can really go a long way with a bookstore is bring a thank you card and a little gift for the person who's been doing so. Like I do chocolates, okay? I think everyone loves chocolates, or most people do, or you could do a Timmy's gift card or whatever, but bring a thank you card at least and write out thank you to the manager who's been arranging this for you. Because it's almost unheard of that people get thank you cards, but that just goes a long way into showing that you are there for them and you want that relationship with them. What else? And then anything that you want to decorate your table with. I actually have an old 1925 typewriter, goes with my whole aesthetic. I have my quill feather pen. That's what I sign my books with. So get creative with it. It can be a lot of fun. So if you have a genre where you can, have that aesthetic, then go for it. It's a lot of fun to do that. Okay. But definitely books and your pens. And actually, you should really also bring business cards. There's been so many times where people either just didn't have the budget to buy my book. They come to the bookstore, they want to browse, but they really can't spend the money on a book. And they come in and they leave without a book, but they're interested in my books. So on my business card, you have your email, your phone, your whatever you want to share, your socials, a way for them to reach you. And that just give it to them for free, right? That's you want them to connect with you at some point. That's what the reader does. And you have to go through the bookstore sometimes to get to the reader. And I think that's it. And the rest, yeah, that's pretty much it with what you can bring. Let me see here. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Tablecloth that has some color to it. Mine is burgundy. It's got a beautiful embossed kind of burgundy floral leaf pattern, and it just goes with my whole aesthetic. So have fun with that too. I forgot that when you are exclusive to Kindle Unlimited, that is only for ebooks, not physical copies. That is correct. Yes. Because when you are on Amazon, you can order your own author copies, and that's what you would use for consignment. That's funny. All right. Yes, I've seen many people have their tablecloth that matches their brand. I have my best friend, she's also an author. She loves the color yellow. She's very bright. And so it's a yellow tablecloth that says author and then her name, right? So lots of great things. I love that you guys have so many, like you're already starting to think of ways that you could be different and be you. Yes, Vistaprint is a great place to do that. I use again, I'm a local author, right? I do a lot of local things. I like to use my local print shop. Definitely check out your local print shop and see if you can get a better deal or, it's just nice to do local if you can. All right. Okay. So, I think that yeah, yellow is a statement. I think I'm all caught up here on the questions. All right. Where am I? Yeah, so that is it for time. And we're going to get into the last thing. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to say one thing you should definitely keep in mind, do your goals align with theirs, readers and bookstore? That's another question. You should definitely write that down. Do my goals align with that bookstores and with my readers? Let's go to the next one. I'm going to finish this up. And I don't have much to say about how to earn the dollar because if you have earned your trust, their time, the dollar is easy. And one thing that I want to share is how can you give them a little extra to show that you appreciate them? It's just, and it just pulls you away from the rest. What extra gift can you give them with their purchase? So I always give bookmarks and I design really nice bookmarks. You can do stickers, whatever you want to do. What's something extra special that you can give them? And with the bookstore, what can you do for them that will want them to have you in their store to sell? I'm going to focus on this one. This one is an event. So, as I mentioned, I have a poster that shows I do scavenger hunts when I do bookstores. Now, this is if oh, yes, you could do a bookmark business card. On my bookmarks, I tend to go more aesthetics, but I always have my website, and my email. Okay, so that's like the best way that people can get a hold of me. Oh, thank you so much. This is really sweet of you. Uh, okay, so what can you do for them? I was saying events, scavenger hunt. That's my specialty. I've kind of fine tuned it, but basically, I say, hey, I'd like to do an author signing in your store, and I have an event that I can do for you, and it's a scavenger hunt. I read a book called Magnetic Marketing by Dan, and I've been trying to really remember his last name. I forget. And in it, he brought up this whole idea of bookstores being a customer. And it totally revolutionized my way of thinking of how to get to readers through bookstores. But he mentioned how when J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter's author, right, the new Harry Potter would come out, she would plan, her and her publishing team would plan this whole event at the bookstore where at Waterstones in the UK, like right before midnight, there would be games, there would be snacks, there would be drinks, there would be like a costume parade, like the whole extravaganza. Now I know that this would be a lot to do at every single book event that you do, but it got me thinking, okay, what kind of event, fun thing that bookstore's readers might appreciate to do with my book? So I offer a scavenger hunt. Basically, what I do is I have 6 clues, and I hide them in books around the store, and they could just go from clue to clue. and there's a little gift at the end. I actually make paper roses out of paper from books that I've read and or I just never gonna read. And I make those, and you could give whatever you want as a gift. It could be a single chocolate, whatever, but it's just something a little extra that that bookstore can promote, you can promote, and it shows that you're willing to go the extra mile for that bookstore to make something fun, to just give them something different to work with. So that is how you earn the dollar, guys. It's everything else before this and common sense practice of just service. This is all about service. It's not about us. It's easy to think and kind of move that way, but no, it's all about the readers and the bookstores. And you get to some readers only through the bookstores. And I just wanted to share, this is how you can get a hold of me so you can snapshot this. I know that my moderators have been doing an amazing job in the comments putting out on my playlist, and definitely check out the AWC playlist in the description of this video. There are so many more amazing speakers to come. So many have already happened. Actually, I was at a book signing today and I couldn't listen to a lot of them, but I was able to listen to one this morning and just the last little bit of the one before me. Thank you guys so much. This is you guys have been awesome. I've been really just enjoying out of the corner of my eye, seeing all your different creativity. I hope overall that you guys are excited to maybe try this. If you've never tried this, please just try it. It's so good to expand the comfort bubble that we have, right? We're all in this bubble and we feel comfortable in our bubble. And it's so important to just expand it and try new things. So, you might get a rejection, but you won't know until you try, right? Because there's a good chance you won't. So, as I said, I do have a training on exactly what you can write in the email to the bookstore to start conversations on consignment, author signing event. So you can check that out. I don't know if there has been if one of my moderators has even been able to find it, and if they didn't, that's okay. But oh, I just feel like my bubble just got popped. Yes, that's what I want. Pop the bubble, guys, and just try something new. And make. Oh, you know what? Actually, I want to put one more thing in here. Last thing you should definitely check out is markets. Okay, like I don't know, not farmers markets, but last night, the Cornwall, which is kind of like the biggest city around me on the Ontario side. Oh, yes, that's it. Dan S. Kennedy. Thank you so much for finding that. I was trying to remember. Guys, if you want good marketing advice, this is an amazing book. You've got to read it for sure. Okay. So I was just letting you know, I was at the Cornwall Art Walk. It's basically the street turns into a bunch of vendors and we all have tents and we're selling things. I was just blown away by how many people were so happy that there were authors there. So I went with my best friend last night. So she's an author, I'm an author. We were beside each other. That's an amazing event. If your city has something like that, if your town has something like that, find it, look it up, and definitely try out markets because you're getting all the money from markets. Okay. Amazon's not taking a cut, bookstores are not taking a cut. You're making good money with markets. So definitely look into that. Does anybody have a quick question about markets? Now, markets are a little bit more involved. You need your own tent, table and chair, definitely. And then all the other things we talked about when you go to a book signing, like your books and your pens and all that. But I think that's pretty, everyone's got a good idea of that. And if ever you have any more questions, or even if you want to riff off of someone for ideas, please contact me. I would love to hear from you. It's Leah Lindeman at leahlindeman.com. And I would love to help you out with this journey. It's almost one of my favorite parts of being an author, obviously writing, but my favorite parts for being an author is meeting the readers, whether that's at markets or online, for worlds part away, and we can't meet face to face, or at a bookstore where they see me for the first time and they're excited about my book and I'm just learning about them. It's really the best ever. But I'm also a people person. Maybe you're not. But or maybe you are an introvert that likes people, but you need your time, and that's great. Your time to do your book signing is like 1 to 3, and then you're done, and then you can go energize on your own. So I hope this has been great for you guys. Thank you again, SD Houston, Margaret Pinard, Devin, for this. Thank you, my moderators. Thank you all for being here. I'm just so happy that we got to share this time together, and have an amazing day, an amazing weekend. Let your creativity fly in this way. You're going to see a whole new world is opening up, and it's phenomenal. Take care, guys. Bye.